Okay, so we're 57A at the very top. And we're talking about brothers testifying about different aspects of a case. So obviously, two brothers cannot give testimony together because they're related. But we're discussing cases where it could be possible that one brother is testifying about one thing and one aspect of the case, and the other brother is testifying on the other aspect, and when that might be valid. Haushtar, there was a document. The Havachasmi Ale Betre. Two witnesses were on the document. And Shachif Chazmi now, but one of the witnesses died. So the problem is now that they want to do a kiyum of the shtar. They want to interview the witnesses and get them to testify that, yes, this is indeed their signature on the shtar, but one of them is now dead. So Asa Achua Dehai Dekai, the brother of the living witness, who was not a witness on the document, but his brother was one of the witnesses, comes along, and one unrelated person, and they're going to testify about the dead witness's signature. They're going to say, yes, this is his signature. So is this a problem? Because on one signature, on the living witness, the living signer gives his own testimony on one signature, and his brother plus one give testimony on the other signature. Does this work? Savar Ravina wanted to say, that's our Mishnah. This is similar to our Mishnah, dealing with the 3 separate years of Chazaka, and there are 3 brothers, each of which testifies to one of the years, and the third person who testifies to all of the years. So maybe, and that is valid. So maybe this is valid too. Rashi said to him, "Midame, are they the same?" In the case of the Mishnah, Lanafik Nachi Riva Demamona Puma Dachai. Like the 3 brothers, they amount to half of the whole testimony, right? Each brother testifying on one of the years, combined with the other guy, the unrelated guy who testifies on all 3 of the years. So the brothers are responsible for 50% of the total testimony, right? But in this case of the signature on the document, nache riva de mamona apuma dachai. 3/4 of the money is coming from the brothers, right? Of the money, 3/4 of the testimony is coming from the brothers, right? The living witness, that's half the testimony, and his brother, half of the rest of the testimony. So 3/4. So they're beyond it's not necessarily the same as the Mishnah, whereas our Mishnah, the brothers are only responsible for half. Now, why that should make a difference, why that's the threshold, not entirely clear, like why it makes a difference. Like if 2 brothers are responsible for half the testimony, that's okay. Like, I don't know, that seems like a principle that should be limited into certain cases like the ones we've described.
So the 3/4 is valid here? No, it's not valid.
Right, they're saying it's not valid here because the 2 brothers are responsible for 3/4 of the testimony. So that's too much for brothers.
Oh, that's too much.
Yeah. Right? Because that's too much of the testimony relies on 2 brothers who are not, brothers can't combine, can't give testimony together. So when you add up all the aspects of the case, the 2 brothers are responsible for too much of it.
But these 2 brothers, they're just saying that the signature of their brother was a valid signature. They're testifying. There's another witness, a separate witness. There are 2 witnesses, right? And so the signature of the dead person is verified by his brothers.
No, you're missing the case. No. The case is the one. There's 2 brothers, one of which is the living signatory to the document. He is the one that signed it. So he can testify about his own signature by himself. Doesn't need anybody else. Now there's the second signatory who's dead, and the living signatory's brother combines with another third party to validate the signature of the dead person. The dead person is not related to anybody.
They're
Okay.
not related. So they're two separate, right? So they're two separate people. They're not brothers. And one of them dies.
Right. But
So
the
the
brother
brothers,
of the
the
living
dead.
one comes to testify about the signature of the dead one.
Oh, I thought the brother of the dead one testifies.
No. That wouldn't be a problem.
Right, that wouldn't be right. So it's the brother of the living one.
Yeah.
So he's no gay but Devar in a sense. I mean,
That's
sort of
right.
what I was. These are the two brothers witnessing. This
Yeah,
is the problem.
exactly.
Whereas
Okay.
in our case, it was okay, right? The previous case in the Mishnah,
Yeah.
there were three brothers.
Right, because each brother is testifying about a separate aspect of the case, that is year one, year two, or year
Right.
three, right? And altogether, they're not responsible for more than half of the testimony, right? They're responsible for exactly half because each one of them has to join with the third party to because you need two witnesses for every year.
I see. So more than half would
More than
puzzle
half is a problem.
would be puzzle the Adud. So
Right.
that's
Right.
it. Okay.
Okay. All right. So now moving on to the next Mishnah, we're no longer talking about the chazaka of 3 years. Remember, there's chazaka really means like a claim, right? We've been talking mostly about the chazaka of occupying something for land for 3 years, but we've also encountered the other kind of chazaka, which is exercising some kind of control, doing some kind of action that exercises control over the land or the object, in some cases, and the owner does not object. So that is also considered a chazaka, right? It's not a time-limited chazaka. It's not a time-based chazaka. It's an action-based chazaka. Okay? So, elu dvarim sheish lan chazaka, elu dvarim she'en lan chazaka. We're going to now define what things are subject to this kind of chazaka. Hayamamid behema bechatzer. If you have if you keep an animal in somebody else's courtyard, tanur rechaim v'kiraim, or an oven or a stove or a millstone, umegadol tarnagolim, or you raise chickens in his yard, v'nosim zivlo, or you pile your manure in his yard, you store it there, b'chazer, and a chazaka. This is not considered a chazaka, and we'll see why. What's special about these things, or why does the owner not protesting these things not is it not a factor, right? Like you would the whole point of chazaka is you would expect that if the owner knew what was going on, and he does know what's going on, then he would protest if he cared, or if he believed it was his, right? But these are things which anybody would allow anybody else to do. That's the presumption of the Mishnah, and we'll analyze it a little further in the Gemara. So the fact that you're doing it and he's not protesting doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean that he's giving up on his ownership claim. Aval, however, also if you build a little pen for your animal in somebody else's in this property, gavoa asar tfachim, which is 10 tfachim high minimum. Same for a millstone or a stove or an oven. If you build a partition for it, or hichnis tarnagolim tochabayis, or if you brought chickens not into the yard but into the house, you make a platform or a pit, 3 tfachim high or 3 tfachim deep for the manure. This does count as a chazaka, meaning if the owner does not object, then that's a sign that he does not own the land and that you own the land, or the yard, I should say. So Gemara says, what's the difference? Like, why would you think that the owner doesn't care about chickens in the yard, but he cares about a chicken coop in the yard? Chickens was the wrong example, an animal in the yard or a pen in the yard. Or why does he care about chickens in the yard, but not chickens in the house? Other way around. Amar Ula, so Ula says, Kol she'ilu b'nichse hager kana, b'nichse havero kana. It's kind of a technicality, the way I understand it, that we're going to apply the rules of Nichsei Ger. So remember that if a ger dies with no relatives, anybody can come along and take over the property by doing something, by an act of chazaka. So whatever counts there counts here. Um, uh, and so And in the case of Nichse Ager, you actually have to build something. You can't just putting your animals in. These rules apply to Nichse Ager exactly as stated. Having your animals wander there is not a chazaka, but building a pen is a chazaka. And so the same applies. We apply the same thing to the case of not Nichse Ager, but just anybody's exercising control over land as a chazaka. Maskil Rav Sheshus. So Rav Sheshus asks. Uchlalahi, that's a rule. That doesn't seem to rule. Vahare near. What about plowing a field? That is an act that acquires the property of a ger, of a deceased ger. B'nichse chavero lo kana. But we know, we've seen in the Gemara before that plowing the field for 3 years does not establish a chazaka. You also have to plant it and harvest it, right? So plowing, which works for a ger, doesn't work for a general chazaka. So you can't make that distinction. V'harei, and also achilas peros. What about just harvesting, right? Eating the produce of someone's field. That does affect a general chazaka, but does not effect a chazaka over the property of a deceased ger. You have to build something to or make some kind of change to the property to take over the property of a deceased ger. So don't tell me that the rules are the same. The rules are not the same. So, or again, we're back to the question of why the distinction in our case of a general chazaka, why the distinction between animals in the yard or building an animal pen in the yard. Rav Nachman answers as follows. You thought we were talking about, two people. One wants to take over the other's. They're claiming the same piece of land. One says, "I bought it from you, and I've used it for 3 years as a proof." Right? Or I've exercised this control. Not sorry, I went back to using it for 3 years, but I've exercised control over it, and you knew about it. You said nothing. That proves that I actually bought it from you. Right? We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is chasra shutfin, a yard that belongs to two partners, right? They own it together. The Bahamada Kadi Lokapte, right? So if you and I are partners in the field, we have an agreement how we're going to use the field, and you exceed that agreement, you let your animals onto the field. I'm like, all right, it's not. Look, we're partners. You're exceeding, your the partnership agreement technically, but it's not a big deal. All right. But a machitza kapte. But if you go ahead and start subdividing the yard and building a pen in the yard, that I'm going to protest about, because that's really beyond our partnership agreement. In other words, I'm going to give you some latitude if I am a partner, but not some, but the latitude is not unlimited. So that's what the mission is referring to. We're talking about a field belonging to partners, and certain things I'll allow you, certain things I wouldn't allow you.
So both of them are partners in this field from the beginning.
Right. And then now the claim is, one of them is claiming that, you sold your half to me. Right. And as a proof, look, you didn't protest when I let my animals graze in the field. Right. So you would say, I didn't care about that. Right. If you build a pen for your animals, then I would have protested because I still in the field. But, just grazing is just because I'm giving you some latitude because we're partners. Okay. So now the Gemara says, "V'hamada kadila kapte." Is that true that a partner would just allow the other partner to exceed his authority in the partnership agreement? Thoughts none. You have a Mishnah. Hashutfin shenadra hanaz emizeh. If you have two partners and then they make another that they're not going to benefit one from the other. Asurin likanis l'chatzer. They have a jointly owned yard. Neither one of them can go into the chatzer because every step you take in the chutzner, you are trespassing. You're enjoying property rights, the property rights of the other partner as well. So you can't do it because you made this neder. So that appears to say that, even the smallest thing, like just going into the yard, would be more than is allowed, more than would be contemplated or permitted, right? Elam Rav Nachman or Rabbi Baravus, Rav Nachman answers, Hacha barachva shel achari bati maskinan. We're talking about like letting the animals graze in a in like a backyard. Okay. The Bahamada Kadi Lokapte. Then the other residents um, don't don't have a problem with you letting your animals in there. Vamachitza kapte. Right. So we're redefining it to say it's not just two partners, but it is a yard behind the houses. So it has different rules than the chutzner. The chutzner is considered more like joint property where everybody has their interests, right? That's where they sit out in the evening and sit on their rocking chairs and knit and um, you know, chat with each other. They want a nice chutzner, right? But the backyard, which is pretty much abandoned, nobody ever uses it, then there's more latitude allowed there. And that's why we're less particular for the backyard. Rav Papa
But there's
answers
still
differently.
shooting, right? Even in the
It's still
backyard.
kind of shooting. I mean, it could be like multiple shooting. It sounds like, all the residents of that of that block. So multiple shooting, but it's different than the typical shooting arrangement because this is the type of property that nobody really cares what happens there. Okay, so therefore we assume that the partners are going to allow a little more latitude. And the implication is, by the way, and this is a little strange, the implication is that even in the case of a nether, where the partners or the residents swear off hana from each other, the backyard wouldn't even be included in that because nobody cares about that. I think that's what it's saying. That's how we're saying the two missions are reconciled because we're talking about the backyard.
Well, the nether is, aren't we saying that the person is ma'aser himself from deriving benefit from going into the yard? But
Yes.
it's not saying that the other party can't use my land. He himself is preventing himself from
Right, but
deriving benefit.
we're trying to make an equivalence between the cases. Like if you would say that a person couldn't go into the land because he made a nether, then you would have to say that that he was particular about any kind of use of the land. We'll see. That's not such a good assumption. We'll see another answer in a minute. So hold on to that question. The third answer we'll refer to that. The second answer is Rav Papa Amar. No, we're talking about a chaser. Vika de kapte, vika de lo kapte. Some people care. Some people care, or in some cases you care. In some cases you don't care. Gabi Mamano regarding monetary things, like our Mishnah, where it's a question of property rights. So Lakula. So we're going to assume that okay, people don't care if somebody else's animal wanders through, if the partner's animal wanders through the courtyard. Right, Gabi Surah, but when we're talking about Nadarim, Luchumra, then it's a different. So you can't compare Nadarim and Mamanos, right? When it comes to Nadarim, if you make a nether, you're not going to have any benefit from somebody. Any benefit means any benefit, even the smallest benefit, like your animal wandering through his yard. So that's the difference between the Mishnahs, right? One Mishnah talking about nether, so it's more strict, and the other Mishnah is talking about mamanos. And Ravina has a third answer. Sorry. The Yom Lakapte. Actually, people don't care about animals wandering through the yard. Vahamane, but this Mishnah, Rabbi Lazar about the neder is a different opinion, and that's Rabbi Eliezer, the Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Afilu Vitur Aser B'mudar Hana. He's very strict about when you swear off Hana from getting Hana from somebody, even Vitur. Vitur is like, a little tip, a little extra, right? If I buy a lot of 100, if I buy 100 pounds of something from you, 100 pounds of flour, and you throw in an extra couple of pounds, or an extra half a pound because you're a nice guy, you want to incentivize me as a customer or whatever. That is, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that is considered hana. So he's more strict with like any kind of benefit, whereas others would say that there are certain things that are not really considered a benefit because they're so minor. So the Mishnah about Nedarim is Rabbi Eliezer, who's very strict. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yochanan Mishu Rabbana. Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Rabbana, whose name is not really familiar, at least to me, but we'll see that he was quite the considered to be quite the interesting and highly regarded individual, scholar, tzaddik, whatever. So as we'll see in the coming stories. But we start off with a relevant thing that Rabbana said in the name of Rabbana, Bakol Shutfin Ma'akvin Zezeh. If you have two partners in a property, they can prevent each other from doing anything that they wish. Chutz min hakavisa, except for washing clothes. Washing clothes is an activity that I guess like you need the open air, you need the yard, and it's understood that in a jointly owned property, everybody's going to want to use it for laundry, right? Whereas any other kind of activity, you can say to the other partner, I'm not comfortable with this use of the land, but laundry is different. Why? Because where do you expect people to do their laundry, right? The Jewish women are not going to go into the public square to hang their laundry. The assumption here and in the coming stories is that washing and hanging laundry involves a lot of physical contortions, exertions, whatever, and it's not modest for women to be doing this in public. So therefore, we're it's understood that they are allowed to do this, that they're going to do this in private, and so a jointly owned yard is a place where they are allowed to do this. So on tangentially off of this idea, v'otzem einav mir osra, the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, this refers to closing one's eyes to prevent oneself from seeing something wicked. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Chia says, what does this refer to? This refers to somebody who averts his eyes when he goes by women who are doing the laundry. Again, that's the issue. So Hekinami. So
what does that have to do? So should they be doing laundry? Should not be doing laundry? What?
You should do well. Look, you have to do laundry where you can do laundry. Presumably, they have to go down to the river to do the laundry. Okay, like what we were talking about, I guess, was like maybe hanging your laundry at home, or maybe you had a well there or something. But typically, when we have to go to a public place like the river to wash your clothes, right? So if you walk by, where the women are doing the laundry by the river, you should close your eyes.
But we are allowing them to do the laundry in public.
Oh, yeah. We're not saying that you're forbidden to do the laundry in public. We're saying that everybody understands that people want to do their laundry as much as possible in private. Therefore, a shared chutzner can always be used for laundry, even over the objections of one of the partners. Okay, but it's not saying you're not allowed to do laundry in public. It's saying people will want to do the laundry in private as much as possible, I guess. And like I said, maybe there's the washing and maybe there's the hanging on the clothesline, or maybe, you take it to the river and get everything wet and then you bring it home and scrub it. I don't know. I'm not basically, I just use a washing machine personally. So I'm not really familiar with the whole process.
There was an interesting story I heard on Tisha B'Av in the name of Chaim Sonnenfeld, I think, in Yerushalayim. There was a woman in the courtyard crying and screaming. So he told his daughter, go down and find out what she's doing. And she said, I can't do the laundry. She says, well, what is it? Because she did laundry for the whole community. All the women would bring their laundry. And she said, I didn't realize on Rosh Chodesh, women don't do laundry. So that the daughter said to Reb Chaim, to her father, she said, that's why she's crying. He said, do we have any laundry in the house? She said, yes. She said, go give her our laundry. She said, but we're not supposed to do laundry. He said, but this is a woman, a widow. I think she was a widow. That's the only way she made money. That's only a minhag that they don't do. You can't do laundry on Rosh Chodesh, but it's a deraita not to deprive a widow of her livelihood and so forth. Give her the laundry.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, so Gemara says, "Hey, Chidami, well, what kind of laundry are you talking about? Idika darkach rita. If you could have gone on a different route and you didn't have to pass by the laundry area at the river, Rashahu, then like, what are you going that way for? Then even if you close your eyes, you shouldn't have gone that way in the first place. I mean, seems a little extreme that someone who goes that way but closes his eyes is called a Rasha, but okay. Idaleka darkach rita. But if there's no other way to go, there's only one path that for you to get where you're going. Honestly, so it's not your fault. Like, why do you have to close your eyes? You have to go where you're going. So um, it is what it is. Whereas with Leon Delekadarkach, we're talking about there is no other way. Even so, you should avert your eyes. Okay, even though it's not your fault that you're walking where the women are doing the laundry. But the right thing to do is to avert your eyes when you pass by them. I think there's a lesson in here. I haven't seen this Gemara quoted in the culture wars over women wearing clothing that is sanua, but it seems to me like this places the burden on the men, right, who are walking in the street. It's like not the women's fault that they're there, that they're doing these activities that might be that might not be so tsanua. It's the men's fault for looking at them. Okay. Bamina Rav Yochanan and Rabbi Bana. Rav Yochanan asked this Rabbi Bana, Chaluk shel Talmid Chacham ketzad. How long should the Talmid Chacham's translates here tunic? I think it's like the what you wear underneath, right? Like your seems to me like a very like a what's the word for it? Not a toga. But basically a long robe, right? That you would wear. How long should it be? Kosher and basar near mitachtav. Shouldn't be able to see anything, any flesh underneath it. In other words, it should be long enough down to your ankles, right down to the floor. Tali shel talmid chacham. Okay, so what about the overgarment of that? How long should that be? Kosher ein chaluk nira mitachtav tefach. Well, that doesn't have to be all the way to the ground. That can be up to a tefach above the ground as long as you have the tunic underneath it. Okay. Let's see. Shulchan shel Talmid Chacham Ketzad. What about the table of a Talmid Chacham? How should you arrange that? How should you cover it? Shnei shlishay gedil. 2/3 of the table should be covered with the tablecloth. Ushlish galai, and the third left open. V'alav karos v'yarak. On this uncovered part, that's where you put your dishes and your food and your vegetables and so on. So what it's a little unclear what's going on here. The tablecloth apparently was also, according to Rashbam, was also used as a napkin, like to wipe your hands and your mouth or whatever, right? So don't put the serving platters or the actual food on the tablecloth, because then the tablecloth will become gross and you won't be able to use it as a napkin. Okay. V'tabato mibachutz. And what about the ring of the table? So it sounds like there's like a ring attached to the table, so that you could hang it up. Like this is more like a tray table, right? So the tray has a ring so that you can hang it up when it's not in use. So where should the ring be? So mibachus, it should be on the outside of the table. Like when you position the tray table for eating, the ring should be not on the side of the diner, but on the outside. Vatanya tabatami b'fnim, but we have another brisa that says it should be on the inside. Lokasha hadika yanuka hadalek yanuka. Depends if there are kids around, right? If there are kids around and they're running by, they're gonna hit the ring and knock the table over. So then put it on the inside. But if there are no kids around, then it's better to put it on the outside. If you might say, or you could say Hava Hadaleka Yanuka. Maybe we're not talking about whether there's children, Volakasha, Hadika Shama, Hadaleka Shama. But if there's a waiter, right? If he's walking by, you don't want him to accidentally knock the table over with the ring, so put it on the inside. But if there's no waiter, then you can put it on the outside. Viboy Sema, or you could say Havaha Deika Shama. There could be, in all cases, there's a waiter, Lokasha, Habimama Habalelia, day or night, right? In daytime, you can see what's going on, in the nighttime, you can't see. The Shalom Aretz Doma. Now, what about the table of a non-scholar, of an Amaretz? Limedura Ukaderos Makifososa. It's like a cooking fire with pots all around it. So in other words, if you're not refined, then you won't set up your table this way. You're going to set it up kind of randomly with the pots around the fire, as it were, with all the food around the edges of the table. And as we said before, you won't really the tablecloth will become gross. Mito shall tell me as a chamin case. And what about a bed? How do you set that up? Kol she'en tachteha ela sandalin bimos hachama. Uh, Any bed that only has like your shoes under it during the summer, umin alin biamos hagishamim, or like closed shoes in the winter. That if you don't keep anything but your shoes under the bed, and the shoes that you're currently wearing, that's a Talmud Chacham. The area under a bed of a common person is like a closet, just full of stuff under the bed. So I guess I'm doing it wrong because we we have some bins under the bed that store things. All right. Okay, we'll stop here for today and pick it up tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Tomorrow is really weird stuff, by the way. These weird stories or statements about this Rabbi Bana. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Okay.